Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of BlackInc.tv. My name is Tony Beaman, your host, and our mission is simply to inspire the next generation of Black entrepreneurs to think bigger and just straight go for it. And you want to talk about going big. Wow. My next guest today this is very exciting for me because I'm just going to jump into it. Mr. Frank Johnson III. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest here. He is a licensed current NBA and NFL sports agent, but even more, let me tell you a bit more about our guest here. He is the owner, founder of Elite Athletes for Christ, which was founded in 2003. I can't wait to hear more about that, but from what I've read, they are looking to be one of the most influential sports agencies in the world. Now, Mr. Johnson has graduated with a bachelor's in mathematics. Are you kidding me? From Morgan State, and then a master's degree on top of that from the University of Baltimore. I don't want to take too much away, but he's not only just an agent, he himself is an incredible athlete. He lettered in football, basketball, baseball. He played track, and they were on the undefeated team, ranked the 22nd high school football team in the nation as a junior. This is incredible. Mr. Frank Johnson, welcome to BlackInc.tv. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me, Tony, today.
Man, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Where are you from? How you grew up? You know, what man, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about, man. But
I love this. I love it. So I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. And the distinct thing about where I was born and raised, I was the first African-American NBA sports agent and NFL sports agent in the city of Baltimore when I became an agent in 2004. And so that came with a lot of pride and responsibility because in my neighborhood, normally people don't aspire to be agents. You know, we come from a blue collar town, a town that's where people work really hard, but you know, being in the sports world is something that's not like commonplace from where I grew up at. And so, you know, being an athlete, you know, when I was in high school, my whole goal and aim was to play football well enough to leave the community where I grew up because it just was a lot of blight. And, you know, there was a lot of people who, you know, saw things differently than my parents raised me. And I knew in order for me to be who I was called to be, I was going to have to leave my city and try to be somebody that would make my family proud. And so football took me up to Boston to play football at Northeastern University, played football there. And then I transferred home and finished my undergraduate degree in mathematics from Morgan State University. You know, I'm glad to be a Bear. You know, my dad always wanted me to go to an HBCU. And I actually turned down a couple of them to play football. And then I wound up coming home and graduating from one. So my dad got his wish. My dad never really wanted me to play sports because he always thought I would get hurt. And he always thought I had a really bright mind. And he thought I should maybe teach or go to law school or do anything but play sports because he felt like sports would be limiting who I would be as a person. And it's like your parents always have so much wisdom because they can see things in you that you can't always see in yourself. And, you know, my dad would always push me. He would always say, you know, even though you were born in the ghetto, that don't mean you don't have to absolutely come from the ghetto. And great things come from where you come from. And it's like, so he was instilling in me faith and trust at a very young age. And I didn't quite understand that. And like, my mom always believed that I could do anything. And she would always push me to be better and better and better and like always encourage me. And so it's like when I got to school and I no longer was playing football, I knew I didn't want to stop being around sports. You know, I've always felt like I would be an executive in sports when I was a young person. Like when I played sports, I always was intrigued by the people who made the decisions for the teams, like coaches, GMs, and owners. And I said I was going to do that. And it's funny how you say things and the Heavenly Father seems to order your steps for you to get an opportunity to do things. And so when I graduated from Morgan, my first job was a high school math teacher. And lo and behold, the first job, I worked at a high school that had the #6 basketball team in the nation. And so, again, I just wanted to work as I just wanted to get a job and start working, you know, and the school had the best basketball team in the area, in the state, and one of the best teams in the country, right? They had 5 All-Americans on one team. I've never seen anything like this for high school kids, right? This just a bunch of elite athletes, hence the name, right? And so the top player got a scholarship to the University of North Carolina. And of course, in sports, there's always people that hang around athletes, good and bad. And I noticed that a lot of people that weren't so good were hanging really close to this kid. And again, me just being a good math teacher, right? He couldn't pass the math part of the SAT, which means he wouldn't be able to accept his scholarship to North Carolina unless he can get the qualifying score. And so we worked every day for 4 months. He got the score and signed with the University of North Carolina. And his mom was ecstatic because she was like, my kid's going to be able to go to college. He's going to play for the University of North Carolina, same school Michael Jordan went to. Fantastic basketball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, can you go when I go down to North Carolina when I start school? I'm like, sure, absolutely, I want to go, right? I'm thinking, I'm get a chance to meet, Brad Daugherty, who was the coach. I might even get a chance to meet Dean Smith because Dean Smith was still hanging around the Dean Smithson at the time. And it was like his mom just didn't want me to leave her son. I said, you know what? This kid's probably going to make the NBA. Like, you can always tell when a kid's a really good athlete and something great's coming that way, right? And so I started looking at becoming an agent. Had a dream about the kid that I was an agent, and I wasn't an agent at the time. And so I petitioned the NFL first. I played football. I check out the NFL. The NFL was like, yeah, you can take a test. So I registered to take the test. And then I applied for the NBA, and the NBA gave me the license immediately. I was like, oh, wow. Like, oh, I'm an agent now. Like, because, again, that wasn't my aim. My aim was to get a job, become a teacher, start my family and career. But the first place that I landed was at an elite level high school basketball team level. And we're still friends to this day. The kid name is Melvin Scott, he's like one of the best 3-point shooters to ever play at the University of North Carolina. And now he's a pro basketball trainer, right? And he trains elite athletes to get ready for the NBA draft. And so he's actually working in his purpose because he was a shooter when he played, and now he teaches shooting to up and coming NBA athletes. And so, fast forward, like, the NFL thing is coming, right? And we're having trouble. And I started coaching high school football because I love football. And I had my daughter, and my daughter is disabled, right? And so I had to make a decision. Am I gonna keep coaching and let my wife carry this load to raise my daughter, or am I gonna stop? So I stopped coaching. And so it was a lot because, like, she has spinal rods, she has a shunt placed in her brain, she had hamstring surgery, like, she's had a tough life, but she's really healthy right now. She's 21 and she's still in the wheelchair, but she's really healthy, and it was the best decision. And so, like, that's where the elite athletes for Christ came from. She was my inspiration for naming, and so we've been working with athletes all globally. I'm also licensed as a FIBA agent. FIBA allows you to work in 217 countries as an agent, so you can place players all over the world because basketball is everywhere in the world. And so we place a lot of players with FIBA, and it's just been tremendous. Like, and I wouldn't trade anything for the world. Like, we've had a long journey, but the journey is about to get really good. Like, 18 years was building the foundation of elite athletes for Christ. And now I can start to see the structure that God put in place for the type of athletes that he wants me to work with now.
Wow. Congratulations on your success. I mean, as you're speaking, I mean, there's a few things that, just became a little emotional for me, when you talked about your parents, number one, and we have a connection, by the way. My parents met each other in Baltimore. All my brothers and sisters are actually from Baltimore. Before I was born, they moved to Kansas City area when my father, he was about to retire from the military. And it was devastating for them because, they were, this was during a time when James Brown, during the 60s, that, we have a lot to talk about, and also early in my career, I worked for a company, it was just called Aerotek at the time. And now it's, Allegis Group, as you obviously know, way before Steve bought the Baltimore Ravens and stuff, and I was in Baltimore a lot. I was one of the first stockholders in the company and all that stuff through the 90s. But man, it's when you talk about the athletes of today and the way you guide them and stuff, how early in their athletic career do you as an agent get involved? Because it seems so competitive now, and it's almost a have and have not thing in a way. But for you, to keep them grounded and focused, how early do you get involved with them?
I would say 9th or 10th grade. And so when I speak to the parents, I speak to them from a mentor standpoint and from a consultant standpoint. Don't talk about what they could be as a professional at all, because I just feel like that's not the time yet. But we have to develop a relationship if we're going to even think about representing the young person, because I have to know that the young person will be a part of our team. And so you only can do that through relationship. And so it's ironic because right now, one of my good friends who went to Morgan with me, his son is an elite basketball player on the high school level. And so we've been developing a relationship, centered around his son, but we already had a relationship, but now it's even more direct about the things that should be done if his son decides that he wants to take it to the ultimate level and be an NBA player. Truthfully, I think he will be an NBA player. But one of the things that hurts a lot of athletes is that they don't have the total package put together for them. And the total package, what we believe at EAC, is mind, body, and spirit. Most of the time, they have the body part together. They make their mind up. But that spirit piece is usually the lacking piece, where if they don't get that piece together, it usually drives everything else that they're doing, and it's usually in the wrong direction. Because, with being a great basketball or football player comes a lot of pressures that may seem right, like the girls and the drugs, and the alcohol, fame. All those things may seem right, but they're not always right.
How do you mean at such a young age, when you're talking about elite athletes? I mean, I would imagine that they all have big personalities. They all think that they're going to go big in one way or the other. Like admiring your approach because of the foundation. But would you say that helps keep them grounded and focused with your approach?
I think so. Most of them don't know that they need it until they need it, right? We just truly believe that you really can't do this level of excellence without God. You might think you can, but when it's all said and done, there's so many stories out there. There's always a cautionary tale about an athlete who takes a big fall. And if you take a close look at their situation, you could almost chart a map when they got off track when they stop doing things out of the cycle that they should be working on, and how things went bad for them, right? If you took a close look. And so like with me knowing these things, I try very hard to make sure we can talk about those things and give them the tools that they need so that they can be prepared when those situations pop up.
Frank, that's amazing that you bring that up, because what I'm really impressed with, even on your website, you make it very clear that you do things, for the athletes and your clients on the field as well as off of the field. And in this day and age, what I feel, what I was found really amazing is how much you work with them on the community relations, the public relations, as well as the digital marketing, because of their name is their brand. And talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, it's really important that athletes become a part of their community. Like every community where you come from, there's people in the community that helped that athlete become who he became, right? And so it's imperative that he can actually reach back and help the next generation. And so we set up things like basketball camps so that he can be visible in the neighborhood, book bag drives, go back to schools. I love being from Baltimore because we have places like Johns Hopkins University, at the hospital, where my daughter spent a lot of time there from having different surgeries. But they actually have a time where you can actually come and give back to the kids that they have built into their weekly schedule. And so I try to get athletes involved in things like that so that they can see that it's way more to the world than just being an athlete. And it's a privilege to be an athlete. So that's really, really important to do those things. And usually what happens is once they start doing those type of things, they'll realize that there's an avenue for them to be able to market themselves also, because people will see them doing these great things and will want to connect with them and work with them.
That's fantastic. Hey, I want to be very respectful of your time, but before we go, I think you have like a little show podcast yourself, from what I noticed, man. Tell us real briefly about Foundation Fridays.
Oh man, you dug deep, man. Oh man.
Hey man, I know. Hey, I'm telling you.
Oh man. And so when we were home during the pandemic, didn't come into the office where we are right now. And I felt like there's a lot of things that I was feeling and thinking about. And I felt like I needed to share those things with athletes and parents and coaches, because I felt like it would help make the world a better place while we were in the house and couldn't do anything, right? And to be honest with you, I got so much positive feedback that I'm actually bringing it back. I'm actually going to do my first Foundation Friday for this year tomorrow. I'm going to do it because too many people have been asking about it, and that's confirmation that you asked about that, because the people want to hear positive things and hear insights that can make it better for them. And I just feel like it's another way of getting the message out and letting people hear what you have to say so that people can feel who you are. Like, it's really important. If I was searching for an agent or an agency, I would want to know who's the person that's running that agency and who is the agent. Like, I just wouldn't want to go off the fact that, okay, yeah, you signed a few players, let's work. No, I would want to know who that person is, because that's going to tell me everything I need to know about them and whether or not it's a good fit.
Mr. Frank Johnson III, thank you so much. We have to bring you back because
I'll come back.
We got so much more to talk about.
So if you send an invite, and I'll definitely get back on the podcast, and I appreciate you guys giving me some time out of your day.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. Once again, I'm your host, Tony Beaman. Thank you again for our guest, Mr. Frank Johnson III. I'm going to go ahead and put my LinkedIn profile link here. Hit me up on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time on BlackInk.tv.